Alright, welcome back to part 4 of the detailing series. So in this section here, we are going to be compounding the paint, and then we're going to be finishing the paint as well. So if you didn't check out the last video, that was all about taping and prep and test spotting. And in that part of the series, we worked out that if you come over to our shelves here, we're going to be using CutMax, and we're going to be using CutMax with our Rupes wool, which is the coarse wool, and that what we found gave us the best sort of cut on the paint. And then we're going to finish it down at the end with Sonax Perfect Finish, and we're going to be using that on the Rupes Yellow, which is their fine foam pad. So I'll take you over and we'll prime this wool pad, and we'll start. Okay, so we've got a brand new Rupes coarse wool pad, and we've got the LHR 15 Mark III Rupes random orbital polisher here, and we're just going to prime this wool pad. Now, to prime this wool pad, you do it slightly different than you do with your foam pads. A little bit of CutMax, and we've just squirted that all up the side of the car, but that's all good. So you just want to spread a little bit of this around the wool here, like that. Not too much. You don't want to soak these fibers in polish, but get a bit of product on there. You want to grab the Rupes claw tool, and you just want to butter this pad. So you just want to spread all that polish around these wool fibers. Nice even spread on there. I might just put a little bit more on. Before you use your polish, you want to give it a good shake up, and that just helps remove, just helps to combine all the ingredients that are in that polish together. You know, some of the heavier stuff might be sinking to the bottom, so a good shake up. And then once you've buttered your pad like that, you just want to set it to your lowest setting, so speed, well, not the lowest setting, but speed number 2. I'm just going to hold it on the paint. We're going to heat this pad up, and that will just allow for all that cutting compound to be evenly distributed throughout the fibers of the wool here. You want to hold this nice and still with a little bit of pressure, and hopefully we get nice even distribute of all that polish through there. And you can see there that polish is spread nicely all throughout those fibers there. So now to start your cutting process, couple of drops on the pad, couple of pea-sized drops, and you're good to go. So you want to spread this polish in the area that you're going to work on at sort of a low speed, sort of speed 2 again, and then you want to ramp it up to, well, we're going to be using speed 6 to get into our cutting, and we're going to do 6 passes in a cross hatch motion. So spread it, ramp it up, and away you go. Alright, so that was 6 passes in the cross hatch motion across the paint. When you finish doing your 6 passes, you want to grab something like surface prep or carpo eraser, and you just want to wipe that over the paint and remove it with a nice soft microfiber towel. That just helps to remove those oils and all those residues that are in the compound. You want to be very light when you're doing this, because you don't want to be introducing scratches when you're trying to get rid of them, right? So brand new microfiber towel. All these microfiber towels I got from the rag company, so if you want to grab them from there, really good. And they're pretty cheap too, so you can get a big bundle of them. Alright, so now that we've removed those compounding residues, you can see where I started up here. This is where I was doing all the compounding, and then if you pull the camera back, you can see where we've got to go. So you can see such a huge improvement in those swirls there. You can use a pen light, so we've got the Rupes swirl finder here. You can get other pen lights like the scan grip lights, which are color matching. This one doesn't, but it's just simple. So it's just a pen light, and then you've got a wide angle there, and then if you pull it down, it narrows it in. And this is really good for finding swirls. You do have to sort of use it like this, and you can get down onto the paint, and you can find your scratches. You do have to get to the angle that you can see them with your eye. You're not going to be able to see me doing this on the camera, but I can see that we've corrected that paint out pretty well. Obviously we're not going to get 100%, and there are some deeper scratches in there, but we've got to chase something that's pretty sensible and reasonable for our 17-year-old paint. But definitely when I compare it to this scoop here, we've come a long way there, and I'm pretty happy with that and that combination to continue on. We will go around now, and we're going to compound the paint out with that setup, and then once the paint's all been compounded, then we're going to come back and finish that with our Perfect Finish and our Rupes Yellow Foam Pad. Okay, so we're getting through the front of this bonnet pretty easily, and I think we're doing really well. We're not chasing 100% perfection on this paint because, bearing in mind, it is 17 years old, but I think we're getting pretty close. Now we're using the combination of the 3-inch pad with the 5-inch pad. Now this 3-inch pad here, this is the coarse wool. It has a 3-inch backing plate, which goes to 3.5-inch face. So that's roughly 80 millimeters on the back to 90 millimeters on the front. With our 5-inch pad, we have a 5-inch backing plate, which then goes to sort of 5.7 inches face. And that's roughly 130 millimeters on the back to 145 millimeters on the front there. Now these wool fibers, these are it's a dual pile, so we've got a combination of sort of long fibers and short fibers. And the whole reason why we've chosen to use this dual pile wool is that hopefully it's going to keep the temperature down on the paint. Because we're doing lots of passes, there's a tendency for this paint to heat up. Now if we just have a quick little look at the difference between, let's just reactivate this. So this is the wool pad compared to the microfiber pad. Now these wool fibers here, this is the density or the packness of the wool in here is not as tightly packed, and there's less surface area when you compare it to these microfibers here. It's more tightly packed, and so the surface area is greater on here. Now, if we increase the surface area like we do on here, there's a tendency for more friction to be passed over the paint, and so that's going to heat it up. So that's why we've chosen for these. Surface area is less, the paint's not going to get as hot, which is good for when we're doing multiple passes. So that's a brief overview of the pads and the sizes and the different combinations of why we've chosen them. We're just going to continue on now working through the car, and we'll give a couple of clips in and out of the progress that we're making.
Okay, so we've just been doing a bit of edge work down this line on the hood here. Also this one using the LHR 75 just to make it a bit easier, because using this big machine, you really, the key with this is to make sure that it's nice and stable on the surface of the paint. You can't have this going either way, otherwise you're not going to get a good cut out of it. So what we've got left here right now on this side will be the middle section. So we'll just carry away working on this here. Remove some of that polish there and see how we're going. Finding that we're definitely having to adjust the pressure that we're using with the wool pad here to get a really good cut. Obviously it is a bit of a difficult hood to work with here because we're working with so many different angles. So it's just a matter of getting some good pad balance, I guess, in combination with good pad pressure as well to cut. And I'm pretty happy with how that's pulled out there. Definitely need to work with the 3-inch again. This section here, I can see that this is where we had a tape strip earlier, so I'm going to get the 3-inch and just hit this section, and then I'll come back and I can inspect this whole corner of the hood here. So I picked up the LHR 75E again here, and what you can see is it is getting quite matted. So this is a combination of I guess this been loaded up with a bit too much polish. So what we've been doing, because we don't have a huge amount of these pads to play with, we've been washing them out and trying to rotate them. But I guess in between every pass, we are coming outside here. We've got the air compressor hooked up, and we're just making sure that we give these a really good clean out. So that's got the majority of the compounding dust out of there. So what we're doing, claw tool again, and we're just giving it a bit of a brush to reactivate those fibres.
And what we were finding is that when this wool pad starts to get loaded with too much compound and stuff, it doesn't cut anymore and it gets sluggish and you don't end up removing any scratches. So you want to make sure that you're blowing out your pads really regularly, you're activating those fibres really regularly, because these pads will load up. And so when you find that your cutting ability is lost, time for a new pad or time for a blowout?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, I'd probably have a good, probably a dozen of each of these pads if we're going to use this combination to do the whole car, just to cut down a little bit of this admin work in between and having to wash the pads. Yeah. But what I'm going to do here, as I said, I'm just working an area where we had a little bit of tape over earlier. Pretty much this section here is where I'm going to just concentrate on. And I'm spreading the polish on a really slow speed. This is the edge I was talking about earlier. It's quite tough. You get to here, you're flat, here you're flat, here, that middle of the pad is not in full contact with the paint. Not too sure if I've quite done enough there to remove, particularly on the tape line, but we'll take the excess polish off, have a bit of a track as to how we're doing there. No, I'm really happy with that. That's come completely out. It's pretty tough to actually see where that line was. Obviously my pad was getting stuck a little bit coming up this line here, and I guess this is probably where a Rupes Nano, which we should have showing up hopefully a little bit later this afternoon, will come in quite handy. But if I'm trying to inspect this here, yeah, we've got that out completely, that tape line that we had there. Where I do have my micro scratches is up that line. So hopefully that Nano shows up shortly and we can do a little bit of rotary work, keeping in these really tight contours here to get a really even finish. We'll carry along on the hood here and we'll share a bit more with you as we progress.
Okay, so we're all done with the bonnet. The bonnet's come up really well. It has taken us a lot longer than we had expected it to take. So now we're just going to move on to these door panels here. I think what's taken us quite a bit of time is we're having to clean out the pads a little more often than we had thought. And obviously that takes time when you're cleaning pads all the time.
Oh, it's so nice to finally sit down. We've been standing up most of the day doing the roof, doing the bonnet. So now it's nice to finally sit down. A couple of hours in I won't be saying that, I'm sure. What I really like about this is that it's got a little clip there that you can hold the trigger in, so you don't have to be pushing the trigger as well. And then you've got this hand freed up to guide it through the paint. That's a nice little feature there that Rupes has created with this polisher.
You just want to make sure that when you come to wipe off your polish that your microfiber's nice and clean, there's nothing in there, because you don't want to be adding any additional scratches, especially after all that work that you've done to get rid of them. What do you think about the surface prep as opposed to the Car Pro Razor?
To be honest, I haven't played with it enough yet because I find that this CutMax is actually removing really nicely with these Rag Company towels that I'm not using any at the moment. So I guess it'll probably come into its own potentially when we use the Perfect Finish, and then definitely when we get to the prep stage for the coating. But what I can tell you is it doesn't have a smell quite as nice as the
no. But you did say that after a while of using Carpro Razor, a couple of hours in, that feels sickly though, doesn't it?
It can get a bit overwhelming.
So this pad's just about ready to be taken off, blown out, and a new one put on. So I was watching a YouTube video with Dylan from Rupes that was put together, a video put together by the Rag Company, and what he was saying is that when you go to pull this pad off, typically if you grab your fingers and pull there, the pad is at risk of causing a little rip and stuff. So what he said is you can grab your claw tool, pinch it, get it started, push it in underneath this pad to roughly the center, and grab your thumb and just peel the pad back like that. So I think that's a really neat little addition with this claw tool, and definitely if it's going to save you the risk of causing a rip into these pads, and hopefully you get good longevity out of it, then I reckon that's a nice little trick to know. Alright, so we polished pretty deep into the night last night. We've got a few little stages left to go. We've got this wing here that we took off. We just got to polish that up. And then up the top here, we've got to then finish this little section here. And then we've got a little half of this rear bumper left to go. So probably from about here onwards is just this little bit of bumper, and then we're done. So once we've done those few little bits and pieces and tidied that up, we're going to come through and then finish up giving a nice finish polish with Sonax Perfect Finish. So we'll get into that.
We've just started on correcting this wing on the ground. We've only really done this center area here, just a couple of test passes to make sure this is correcting out the same. All of this area over here is uncorrected. And then we've done 2 passes coming through the middle here before we get all the way down to the end. And then we hit uncorrected again.
Alright, so we've just finished up compounding the whole car. We used the Rupes coarse wool pad, and we used Sonax CutMax. Now that's got a cut of 6, so really aggressive, and definitely more aggressive on that wool pad, and it finishes down to a 3. Using that product for definitely a long period of time, you know, definitely heaps of hours on that product. Really enjoyed using it. It's a low dusting, which is perfect in an environment like this. Especially in a garage where it's not well ventilated, we managed to not have too much dust issue. That product is really nice to work with because it rubs off the paint really easily, so you don't really need to use too much surface prep to remove that with your microfiber. It just comes off nice and easy, so you're not having to buff it out, which is good because you don't want to be inducing too many scratches while you're doing that process. Just having a look around the paint now, we've managed to really remove all that oxidization off the paint. So oxidation's all gone. We've managed to remove definitely all the water spots, and I'm really happy with how that's come up. We've managed to remove definitely a lot of the surface scratching, but the deeper scratches, bearing in mind that this paint's 17 years old, those deep scratches haven't come out. The rule of thumb is basically we decided that if you can get your fingernail stuck into those scratches, those deep ones, they're definitely not coming out. Areas of those are like around the door panels, and you know, in areas where there's high traffic, so people coming in and out of the car, and definitely around the boot area where you're lifting bags and groceries and things like that. Those deep scratches haven't come out. But overall, the finish has worked really well. Really happy with the CutMax. What we're going to do now is we're going to start into our finish polishing. So we're going to be using Sonax Perfect Finish, and that's got a pretty low cut, so a cut of 4, and we're going to be using it with our Rupes fine foam pad here, and it's got a really, the Sonax Perfect Finish has got a really nice finish. It's going to finish it to a finish of 6, so really high gloss, so hopefully we bring that richness out of the paint. Okay, so there's a bit of dust that's been on the car that's been sitting there while we were polishing out the areas and overnight. So we've got a brand new polish removal towel. These are microfiber from the rag company. And a bit of Maguire's surface prep, and we'll just prep the surface here. I'll just work in this sort of area here with our Sonax Perfect Finish. So we'll give this all a decent wipe down. And we'll just work in this little area here. Alright, so we've got a brand new Rupes fine foam pad on here on the LHR 15 Rupes machine. Line it up. And we just need to prep the pad. So we'll shake up our Perfect Finish. You always want to make sure you shake up your Perfect Finish, and that just helps to mix all the ingredients of the polish in together. Give it a good shake up. And here comes Mr. Courier Man. So a couple of drops on here. So this is our priming stage of our brand new pad. So 4 or so drops on there. Get that pad nice and primed. So to prime the pad, we do it slightly differently to our wool. We just got a couple of pea-sized drops on there. Going to have it on speed number 2. Just hold it on the paint, and we're just going to hold it with a little bit of pressure and just heat that that foam up, and hopefully we get a nice spread of that Perfect Finish all the way, nice and evenly distributed throughout those foam cells. You just want to work the pad for about 20 seconds or so, just holding it nice and still on the paint. And what you can see there is that those are those 5 little dots that I put on there, and you can see how it sort of smeared it all the way through there. So that's pretty good, even distributed throughout that pad. So the pad's all nice and prepped. We just put our couple of pea-sized drops onto here, and we're going to spread on speed 2 like we've always done, but this time, once we've finished spreading, we're going to ramp the speed up to speed number 4, which is slightly less from where we were when we were doing our cutting, and we're also going to back the pressure off a little bit. And hopefully this gives us a really nice finish. So spread on 2. Ramp it up to speed 4, which is slightly lower than the speed 6 where we were when we were cutting. And we're going to back the pressure off, and 4 passes, and our hex-like motion. So now what we can do is we can grab our surface prep again, give this a little bit of a wipe. This just helps remove a little bit of those oils left over from the polish. Just want to be really gentle with wiping this down. You don't want to be introducing any more scratches. And then we have. I think that's going to work really well. It's really lifted the gloss out of the paint there. So I worked in this sort of section here. I didn't come over here. So the really nice thing about using that the Perfect Finish is that it's really low dusting again. So especially in this area, you know, there's not too much dust in this garage area. So this is going to be really nice to work with, and that's really easy to rub off as well. So just a little bit of surface prep takes the polish off, takes those oils off. So this is going to be a really nice product to then work with for the next couple of hours or so. So this, I think, is going to work really well for us. Okay, so just to talk you through these pads a little bit, this is the Rupes Yellow, their fine pad. So this is a 3-inch pad, so it's got a 3-inch backing, which is 80 millimeters, which goes to a 4-inch face, which is 100 millimeters. The 5-inch pad has got a 5-inch back, which is 130 millimeters, and then that goes to a 6-inch face, which is 150 millimeters. So what's really good about these pads is that they sort of flare out a bit, and that allows you to get up nice and close to your edges. And the whole purpose of that is so that you're not running the risk of hitting the backing plate onto the edge here. So that gives you a little bit of security with these pads. So all the Rupes foam pads, they're open cell foam. So what that allows you to do is it allows airflow to come in and out of all these foam cells, and that helps to keep the temperature down. So that's helping with regulating the temperature on the paint, so you're not heating the paint up so much. So this is a really good choice if you're worried about heat on the paint. I guess this is the green pad, so this is more of a medium sort of pad, and what happens is this is a lot more porous. The foam in here is a lot more porous, but the density of this pad is a lot higher than this. So this pad's going to allow you to have a greater cut than this one. We definitely don't want any more cut because we've done our cutting, so we're not going to be using this. What we will be using is this yellow pad. So this pad is it doesn't have as much porosity as this one, and it's not as dense as this. So this pad feels a lot softer than this one, and this is going to be really good for finishing, and this is what Rupes sort of recommend. This is their most used pad, and this is what a lot of people grab when they're sort of going to do a one step or in their finishing stages. This pad's definitely a lot softer, a lot finer, and is really going to help finishing this paint really well. So bearing in mind we still are going to get a little bit of cut with this with our Sonax Perfect Finish. That does have a cut of 4. Very minor little cutting, but this is going to finish the paint down really well with our Sonax Perfect Finish, because that's going to finish down with a gloss factor of 6. So hopefully this combination is going to get us to bring that richness out of the paint and give us a really nice finish, ready for when we come into our coating stages. So it's very important to regularly blow out your pad. So you can see here we've used it a couple of passes on a panel or so, and you can see that this pad here is starting to load up with the Perfect Finish here. One of our real key learns that we got from when we started this process is that when this pad starts to load up with compound and polish and things like that, this pad becomes very inefficient. It becomes inefficient at cutting, it becomes inefficient at polishing, and so you really want to make sure that you're regularly blowing out your pads to maintain that this pad is as efficient as possible. So when you're finding that you're losing your ability to work on the paint and work and remove those scratches, it's probably because your pad's loaded with compound or polish in here. So you want to blow it out really regularly. So here we've got the just a little air compressor here with the 10 Tools air gun on here, and you just want to blow the pad out. So you can see that that's starting to change from that dull white into a deeper yellow colour. So there you can see that's what the pad looks like when you've blown it out. So we've managed to remove quite a lot of that Sonax Perfect Finish, and now we're ready to continue to go again. Okay, so we're just having a little bit of a chat here. We've finished this hood section of the car, and if you rub your hand along here, you guys obviously can't rub your hand along here, but the slickness of this, you can definitely tell that we're starting to finish the paint, because it's starting to become quite slick, starting to feel quite smooth, and the hue of the paint is starting to look a lot richer, a lot more deeper in colour and a lot more glossier. When we come over to this sort of door panel here, where we haven't really finished anything here, this has just had straight compounding on here, I can definitely tell that it's not as rich in colour, and then when I rub my hand along there, it still feels quite tacky, and that's because this area hasn't been finished polished. So you can definitely tell that we're doing stuff over there, and that Sonax Perfect Finish is definitely doing a really nice job of finishing this paint down. So I guess the key is if you didn't have a compressor to blow these pads out, you could use the Rupes claw tool, and you can sort of brush this slightly clean like that. I'm not going to do this on this carpet, but you'll get it sort of alright, but definitely compressed air is the best way to clean these pads out. Short of you not having a compressor, you probably just want to have a bunch of pads. You probably want to have 10 plus pads so that you can change them out all the time. You guys have already seen this before, but I got to show you again because I love it. So just get the pad started like that. Get your claw tool, push it all the way into the center there. You can probably just see it poking through there. And then you want to peel the pad back. And off it comes. So that's really easy. So I definitely recommend you guys get one of these. The whole idea of using the claw tool like that to rip that pad back is that if you were to grab the end of this, especially on the foam pads, and you start to pull back, you could tear this pad and then it's no good. So instead of wasting your money, you might as well buy one of these and do this properly. So definitely recommend getting one of these.
So we're just working on this hatch of the car, but what is quite cool is we finished up on the roof up here, and as you can see from this angle, the gloss is just absolutely amazing on the top of the roof. So making really good progress all the way around the vehicle. We've still got both of the doors on either side of the car to go, and quite a bit on the hatch and the rear bumper. But we're making fantastic progress, and this perfect finish is leaving a really nice glossy finish on the surface.
Alright, so what we're both finding is that these pads here, these fine foam pads with the perfect finish, isn't loading up as much as it did with the wool. So that's really good because this means that this process is really efficient, means that we're not having to blow out the pads as often as what we were with the wool. So this part of the process is definitely quicker than what we did through the night last night.
Courier's just showing up, so this is an urgent Saturday delivery. We only got on the phone yesterday afternoon, and thanks to the White Group up in Auckland, Bevan managed to get this out to us overnight. So huge thank you. This is our Rupes Nano machine, so we can finish off all of the polishing, the little areas that we didn't quite get to with the 5-inch or the 3-inch. So huge thanks again, Bevan, for getting this to us overnight.
Okay, so we've managed to do most of our heavy lifting in terms of polishing with our Rupes LHR 75E and our Rupes LHR 15 Mark III, but we have left a lot of our edge work in and around the door jambs and mirrors and things to last because we are waiting for this nano hybrid to show up in the mail from White Machine Tools, and it's finally arrived, so now we can crack into that. We're going to be using the long neck here with the rotary attachment on here because we want to get nice and close to our edges. If we use the random orbital function on here, the throw's a bit too much and we can't get close enough. So we've just got the rotary attachment on here, and we've got these nice little 1-inch wool pads here. So this is, it sort of goes from, the 1 inch is on the back here, so 1 inch roughly on there, which is roughly about 30 millimeters, and it goes to roughly a 1.7 inch face, which is roughly 45 millimeters on there. So the way that pad has got a little flare out, so that's helping us to get a little bit closer so that we're not going to run the edge of this rotary attachment onto the paint. And so really excited to give this a crack, and hopefully we can really do our edge work justice and really bring out some of those scratches in those tight areas.
It's a very similar process to prep our pads, except you need very little product, using our claw tool again, and really just buttering this up. And what I found is that is probably enough product to get me started on each part of the process. So the area that I'm planning on working here, which we have left for this machine, is this bit here. We obviously have the rotary attachment on, so we are going to be wanting to be quite careful and not hold in a single area for too long. And what I've found quite effective can be 2 or 3 passes maximum. We don't need to hit it with 4 to 6 like we were doing with the rest of the cutting. So trying to cut on speed 5, we're going to max speed on this here. And I'm just using my finger behind here as just a bit of a guide, so I'm not hitting the metal on the scoop here. And I found that that's been pretty effective just doing a couple of passes. We'll remove some of that polish. And I'm pretty happy with the cutting that a couple of passes there did in that tight area. So we'll carry on around the side of the car. I'll show you what it's like on the pillars and also around some of the door handle area before we come back and we have a look at some of the finishing. So when the Nano turned up, it actually had 2 dead batteries. So this machine comes with 2 batteries, but also a power attachment as well. So while the first battery was charging, it takes 20 minutes to charge each one. We were able to simply take this out and put the power cable in and start using it straight away. But the 2 batteries it comes with run on a 20-minute use cycle and then a 20-minute charge. So once you've got one in the charger, you can just cycle through them and you don't need to use that wall power. One of the things that I have found when using this, particularly in the rotary setting here with the wool pad, is that it does fling quite a bit of product. So you are going to want to watch out because you will have a bit of cleanup to do, especially when you're working in an area like this around the door handle where you are going to hit areas where the pad won't be in full contact with the paint, so it is going to fling it a bit. So what we'll do is work through this door handle area, which is quite a tight spot. We can't get behind here without taking the door handle off, so there'll be a bit of hand polishing behind there, but we'll try and get as close as we can to some of the edges. And one of the things I've been doing, because it is flinging product, is using the technique of just dabbing the polish around and then coming across in a quick swipe with the machine on a low speed to spread it before cranking back up to speed setting number 5. And I'll be doing a lot less passes with this than I would if I had the dual action on here. The rotary seems to cut through the paint really quick. We'll remove some of that polish. And I'll do a quick inspection. And we are going to have to probably get some compressed air behind the cracks here to get some of this polish out before we wipe down with our surface prep, before we do move into a coating stage. But just inspecting that, we have a little bit more work to do just on the top here. Keeping in mind I only have done 2 passes here. This whole door handle is looking really good. So we'll just add a little bit of extra polish, just touch this area here again, and likewise just a little bit on this bit. So you're probably 2 to 3 passes on this car. Pretty happy with the result.
That 1 inch is such a nice size to get in little tight areas like this bumper here, eh?
Yeah, it's a mint.
Really enjoying it. So much control with the tool as well.
I think especially having that rotary attachment on it, it means that you can get really precise in the edges. I struggle to think how we could do this job without all three tools to, I guess, the level that we're wanting to get.
I think having that combination's definitely given us that, you know.
Don't get me wrong, you could do a whole car with a 5 inch. But I'd probably say if you're only buying one tool, I'd buy the 15, the LHR 15. However,
and you just have to get into your mind that you're not going to get into the cracks and stuff. You're not going to do a complete job.
I almost think that if you could only have 2 of these tools, I'd be inclined to go LHR 15 and a nano. You'd be a lot slower going around the car.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. Because you can get, is it the 2 inch that comes attachment on here?
2 inch. So you're almost all the way to, I mean, this is a 3 inch backing, 4 inch face. It'd take you a while longer to do it with that.
Yeah, that's probably a right idea. So get the 15 and get one of these.
Yeah, and then this is probably your luxury third tool.
Yeah.
Just a quick enough
And then
process.
if you definitely had like a couple of guys or a couple of mates helping you out, and you had the luxury and you already had all 3 of these tools, I'd get another 3 inch.
Yeah, I think having 2 3 inches, I guess that's the flip. When we were polishing yesterday, doing the majority of the cutting on the car, this was the one that was in high demand. Yeah,
the 3 inch, definitely. Yeah. So just like we were using our finishing with our fine foam pad here, we're going to be doing exactly the same with our edges, with our hybrid here, the long neck. We're going to be using, again, a 1 inch pad, just like we used with the wool, but this time it's got roughly a 1.3 backing plate on it, or attaches to the backing plate here, 1.3 inch, and it goes to, which is 34 millimeters roughly, and that goes to a 1.5 inch face, which is roughly 40 millimeters. We've got the rotary attachment on here, just like we did with our cutting, and so we're going to finish up our edge work using this now.
So I'm going with the same process to just dab out the polish. In my finishing stage here, I've got the Rupes Yellow pad on here, and I'm just dialing back the speed a little bit, so going to about speed 4, and after I've dabbed this out, I am just spreading it in, just like this, and then it's just slow movement, and this is flinging quite a bit of product again. Not too concerned about that because we will go around. We've got to surface prep the whole car before we coat. Quite nice, this long neck machine, because you can support your hand on the neck to get it balanced nicely. I'm going a little bit slower with my movements on the finishing polish to compensate for that slower speed. But you don't want to hold on your edges for too long either, because you'll be quite prone to burning them using the finishing machine. So I'll carry along, finish this A-pillar here, and then I'll move to finishing the door handles. So that pretty much wraps up the compounding and the polishing of the car. We've probably spent about 2.5 days and that's with the two of us going at this car, so we've really tried to tackle as much as we could, and we'll show you a few shots up on screen now to show you what the car is looking like. But our huge thanks to White Machine Tools for number one, overnighting this to us. We couldn't have finished this job without the Nano, but for also providing the other two tools we used in this process, which was the LHR 75 and the LHR 15 Mark III. You know, these three machines made this job a breeze compared to just having one or having an inferior machine. But I definitely think there's benefits in each of these machines. If you can get away with all three, it'll make your job so much easier. So what we'll be doing next is moving into the glass polishing stage, getting that all tidied up, because that is going to fling a bit of mess across the car. So we'll make sure that's out of the way before we get to probably the most exciting part, where we can see the results, which is our coating. So make sure you stay tuned for the next video, which is our glass.